So Unit 1, then, the function and purpose of Unit 1 is to give us the setup for the rest of the semester, the content and the skill set that we're going to need for the rest of the semester. So we're starting off with a series of Little Mermaid adaptations. So we're going to read the original Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen, and then we're looking at 2 film adaptations of the Little Mermaid. Disney's very famous Little Mermaid, and then Studio Ghibli's Ponyo, which is also a Little Mermaid adaptation. And we're doing that for a couple of reasons. First, it demonstrates what the early pre-19th century version of children's literature in the West was often like. So Western children's literature was often in the form of a fairy tale. And you'll hear more about that when we get into the lessons in Unit 2. But you can actually see one of those fairy tales in Unit 1. Then the second thing is that it allows us to look at 3 versions of the same story, as I mentioned, because we are interested in what happens to a story when you adapt it. That's why it's children's literature into film. So we're interested in what happens to that when you adapt it into something else, a different medium, in this case from literature, which is language, into film, which is image and sound, right? So for number 3, the third purpose of Unit 1 is because they're all adaptations, all 3 of these texts have an overt intertextuality. So intertextuality is a relationship between texts where they draw from and borrow from one another, where all texts that are produced are responding to all of the other texts that ever existed. So they're intertextual. They make references to one another. Adaptations are even more intertextual because they are explicitly using another text. It's explicit. But in this case, in Unit 1, these are produced by artists from 3 different national traditions: original Dutch, then the Disney US tradition, and then Japanese with Studio Ghibli, which means that they're really good examples of the adaptation theory that we're going to be learning in this unit. We're going to be reading adaptation theory in Hutchins' essay, Beginning to Theorize Adaptation, and learning about some myths that are associated with adaptation, learning about some truths that are associated with adaptation, and most importantly, learning about the 4 strategies of adaptation that folks use when they're moving from one text to another text. So that essay can be a little difficult, so you may want to get a head start on it and give yourself plenty of time.